As certified life coaches with 45 years combined experience in human resources, Jen Trum and Katherine Fry have both experienced the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, both personally and professionally. What they both know to be true is this: our mental, physical, and emotional health are the essential building blocks in order to thrive and shine in the field of HR. In a first of its kind podcast, we'll be getting real and we'll discuss and share what has contributed to both our success and struggles, with the goal of inspiring women around the globe to stand tall and take the necessary action to both thrive and shine in HR. Here are your hosts, Jen and Katherine.
Hello and welcome to Thrive and Shine HR. We are your hosts, Jen and Katherine. We are incredibly excited today because today is our 10th episode.
Woo!
Hello, Katherine. How are you today?
Jen, I am so great. How are you today?
Really excited. It's, it's a big episode, not only because it's our 10th. And I don't know if you've ever heard this before, Katherine, but I have heard that people say that if you ever launch and start a podcast, if you can get to your 10th episode and see yourself, starting to grow and gain momentum, you are golden. And I think we have definitely met that threshold. Wouldn't you say?
I would say that it's been so much fun. I have never done that much background or research into doing a podcast. So I don't know the ins and outs of it like you do. I'm just so honored that you asked me to go on this journey with you, and it has been more than I could ever have imagined. I've met a true friend in life, and I just love connecting with all of our listeners. And I think it's just so important for HR professionals to know they're not alone, and that every day. And I love that we record these on Mondays. Mondays are huge. It's the start of the week. Let's go. So excited. So excited for everything.
Oh my gosh. Yes, let's do this. So today we are talking about a subject that you and we had a pre-show yesterday morning. And what was so funny is both of us spent our first 20 plus years in HR completely thinking that we knew how to listen, right? Completely thinking like, I'm a good listener, right? And
pretty sure it was on my resume, like towards the top. Great listening skill.
And really, it wasn't until both of us had separate kind of epiphanies really around, whoa, right? Like, there is so much getting in the way of me actually truly being able to listen, right? The people pleasing, the need to control, the need to fix, right? We're going to talk about those things today, but it just was hilarious because it was really, I think, this growth that we've experienced just in the last few years where we're like,
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, the gut check that we've had to do. So I'm so excited to talk about all of it today.
Me too. And I have no shame around it. I've been in HR since I was 22 years old. And here I am, I'm approaching 49 this year. And I did not understand that I had not developed my deep listening skill until I was 45 years old. So no shame. I just did not know. I did not know what it was. I did not know it was a skill you had to develop. I didn't know. So that's why I'm so excited for today. No shame for any of us ever.
No shame. And that it is actually like a normal thing to feel too, like, at different times. And so like part of what we're here to do is help to, like you said earlier, say, we're not alone. You're not alone. No, there's nobody alone out there. And so when it comes to some of these habits, perhaps that we've participated in when our listening ways, that we can correct them, we can become aware of them, and we can shift them. So, well, let's get into it. So why don't we kind of ask the first question where it kind of goes right into it, right? So when you look back on your career in HR, what is a specific time that you can recall where you could have listened more effectively, that perhaps maybe you got in your own way when it came to being able to listen effectively?
How long is this episode, Jen? I could go on for a long time. I just have to talk about not being able to listen right now. I'm looking at my background. So anyone who is watching the live stream of this, I'm not in a hospital. I'm down in Miami. I'm meeting my coach in person for the first time tomorrow. So if you are not necessarily listening to both Jen and I right now because you're too distracted by my background, that's just one indication, right? One indication that we do have some opportunity to learn how to listen and not be distracted by the things going around. So the example that comes to mind is when I was doing an exit interview in my last 9-to-5 role. It was with a male who I had recruited based on what I thought the company culture was moving toward, meaning more driven, more focused, more high achieving. So I hired this person who fit all of those things. And it turns out culturally, the organization didn't want to shift. I'll just leave it at that. So this employee, I had personally recruited him, super intelligent, MBA, highly educated. I recruited him and it was a bad fit. So during the exit interview, I was really not able to listen because one, I had so much shame around the fact that I had hired somebody that didn't work out. He actually brought this long list of things he wanted to talk about. His wife is in Six Sigma. And instead of being able to truly listen, I was caught up in my head of, you're not smart enough. You effed up. This is awful. You impacted his life negatively. Like he didn't work out. It's a small community, just all of those types of stories. And I wasn't able to show up and truly listen. Truly listen. But what's so crazy, Jen, is he's now a client. And the story, he's now a client. He's now very successful in a different organization. And now that I do coaching and consulting, this is also about listening, actually. He reached out when I was taking care of my parents. I was home for a month in November, caring for my aging parents. They both had surgery. And he called saying that there was a woman he wanted me to do some coaching with. They wanted to put her on a PIP. And he was like, what else can I do besides a PIP? I was like, first of all, don't do a traditional PIP. Second of all, yes, I can help coach her. And then it just sort of fell apart. Like, didn't really fall apart, but he emailed back a couple weeks later and was like, we went a different route. So I thought, again, I'm not smart enough. I wasn't truly listening to what he was saying. We went a different route. I made that mean certain things in my head. And turns out they really did just go a different route. They were able to retain her. And he just hired me to do a half-day learning session with his administrative team that is on April 10th. So my point is this. We have to learn that in order to deeply listen, we have to get out of our own heads. It's not about our lack of intelligence. It's not about our self-doubt. And not only do we have to do a better job of listening to others, we have to truly start listening more deeply to ourselves and the narratives we're telling ourselves that are disempowering and not serving us. And frankly, totally untrue, but we've been telling ourselves for so long that we believe it to be true. I just went into a lot.
Wow. That was such a great story. I mean, like my heart is pounding right now because like just being able to like come to this place, you know, in that situation and really recognize what it was that you know, were attached to, you know, what you were holding on to and what was really difficult to let go and be aware of and conscious of. And like, as you've been able to strip that away, oh my gosh, Kathy, that was so that was amazing.
I went all over the place, listening to ourselves more deeply, but other people too. And I'm super excited to work with him, by the way.
Yeah.
No more fear of the smart guy. I'm ready. We're teaming up. Let's go.
That's amazing. Well, it's so wild because I have a similar, very different story, but it's like really interesting because I used to work in hospitality. And so working in hospitality, there were several restaurants within the hotels I worked at. And we had very atypical, chef type personalities. And one of those personalities was someone that I really, really struggled with, and yet also really, really like bonded with in certain ways. And it was very interesting because I think ultimately it created a really challenging dynamic when kind of the shit hit the fan, right? Like we got into a situation where he was, really struggling behaviorally, right? He would lash out. He would, do the typical type of chef behaviors. And then, the GM at the time and myself, we would bring him in, we would talk to him about it. And he, would always, kind of have this attitude about it, right? Like there was immediately the wall that goes up. It's not me, it's them, right? There's immediately kind of this perception of, that he's, somehow, being set up and, like it was really so challenging with this individual. And I remember so clearly at the time that in my head, all I could do was try to like come up with the reasons why he, it was his behavior was wrong and bad. And what I really was finding for myself was that I didn't it's not enjoyable, right? Like when you're dealing with another individual who is very emotional and triggered and that sort of thing, what we want to do, I mean, there's like the fight, flight, or freeze, right? Which we all know. And
all
then
heard
there's
it.
fawning, right? And so for myself, that's exactly how I would show up to try to diffuse and shut down the situation, right? And so rather than like really just being present with what was and allowing what was without trying to kind of fix it or manipulate it or change it in any way, I really would. Yeah. And that's kind of where I would get stuck with this individual. And so ultimately he kind of found himself in a corner and we ultimately had to let go. And so it was really tough because in retrospect, had I gotten out of my own way and let go of the things I was kind of attaching to because I didn't want to be in that discomfort. The other thing I will say too is he was a pretty heavy alcoholic, which is very, very common for people in the food industry and restaurant industry. And so as someone who also was silently hiding and drinking daily and that sort of thing, to really kind of allow that person to just let out what they needed to let out in a space that was safe, I would have needed to actually have been okay with allowing that truth within myself. And in those years, I was not. So as we know, I am now. But it's like in retrospect, I think some part of a wall that I put up, and I think so many of us put up, is because of a fear of somebody seeing inside, somebody seeing something that we keep, hidden or closed off. And I think in that circumstance, in retrospect, there was a lot of that happening as well, where it's like, oh no, if I really let this in, the truth of it is going to be too painful. So yeah. So I think, exactly going back to what you said, as I am now kind of in a place through coaching and through my own mindset work to be able to kind of look back on that, that was one of the biggest of my lifetime, where I can see how if I could have shown up differently for someone now. And like you said, now having a relationship with the individual that you had worked with before, this is someone that I now have become very, very close friends with.
Look at
And
that.
found out about like so much trauma and so much
Yes.
abuse that they had in their past. And there was so much, behind their curtains that, as we've like gotten to know each other over the years, have been able to like realize like how much sometimes people will show up with so much defensiveness, so much reactivity, so much triggering. And if we can just allow it and let it be and push away the ego parts of ourselves that tend to want to fix or manipulate or change or fawn over or whatever to make it go away, then I think we miss that opportunity. So that was a very long response, and one that I think was one that but I think, it leads us to the next question, which is really like in your experience, both within the field of HR and now in coaching HR professionals, what have you seen, Kathy, as some of the biggest pitfalls around listening, and why is it that we struggle so much with being able to show up truly and authentically?
The two that came up for me, in my 9-to-5 world, and now that I coach HR professionals, the two that are predominant are, it's so funny because you were just talking about it. We take things personally. And when we do that, we don't have the ability to develop that transformative and essential communication skill of deep listening. Mm-hmm. So I know we hear this a lot, that we make it about ourselves. But I think when we do think about it, Don Miguel Ruiz wrote The 4 Agreements. It's a very famous book, so to speak, but he also wrote a book called The 5th Agreement, and it's the application of the 4 agreements. And the book's, this big. And my greatest takeaway from that 5th agreement book is the greatest battle we will ever have in this lifetime is the battle in our own brain. It's that battle that we have. And if somebody comes into our office and says, hey, do you have a second? And you start thinking, I don't have a second. I'm behind on my deadlines. Oh God, here's this person again. What do they want now? All of those types of things. That is a battle in your own brain. Mm-hmm. You're not truly even able to show up for that person. Maybe that's not right on point with taking things personally, but you're making it about you. You're not saying, of course, come on in. You're not truly able to just sit and be with that person and realize the greatest battle in their lifetime is the battle in their own brain. So help them with that battle. Help them see their thoughts. Are they disempowering them? Or are they empowering them? And in order for you to get to that space, it's so, so, so important to just understand that when we're taking things personally, we truly are not able to listen, period, let alone be a deep listener. And then the other thing that I find with my clients, the root of everything is, when we get in our own way, is self-doubt. We don't believe in ourselves. We don't believe we can do it. And oftentimes we overcompensate. I see this all the time with my clients. We want to give an answer right away. We want to show that we know the policy. We want to show that we can help, and we answer right away. And that's not listening. You're not really listening. You're not getting to the root. You're probably just scratching the surface level. And deep listening is really about allowing that person to show up, communicating in a way that encourages them to open up, be more honest, and really get to the root and not just be scratching the surface. Got to show up totally differently in HR. What do you think, Jen?
Yeah. Damn, it's so good. I mean, the nuggets you were dropping today, Catherine, is like,
It's Q2. It's April 1st. Yeah. It's time to go. Q1's done. Let's go.
I will ditto everything you said all day, every day. And I will really kind of add on to that. And I think for
Please.
me, it's really, so much of that, like continuously checking in with myself and that present state of mind. I think one of the people that really like shifted my mind more than any other was Eckhart Tolle. And it was when I read The Power of Now. And when I read The Power of Now, something went
I love that. I love
and
that.
when that happened, I just really found like myself starting to like recognize it's that constant checking in. It's not, it's not something that we do occasionally. It needs to be something that we do
No,
continuously. And really it's about like, where is my ego right now? Where is, where am I, how am I feeling energetically about the situation? Do I feel like I have something to prove? Do I feel like I need validation? Do I
yeah,
feel like I'm trying to control the situation in some way? Like, what is going on? And I think that is really what has kind of shifted the dial for me. And so, and that's where it's so much fun. And I think what you and I talk about is like, once you start on that path, there's no turning back. There's really not, because you start to like realize, oh my God, it has been me. It's been me all along. It's really just in how I'm showing up and how I'm checking in with myself and making sure I'm leaning in fully into this conversation without feeling like I have something to prove or something to. So yeah, like I think that's been it for me, is like presence and like learning how to make sure that that's something I'm dialing into as much as I possibly can, because that's the only way to truly be able to serve.
mhm,
Because like, like I was talking about with the chef situation, in retrospect, it's like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like the me now would have shown up to serve in such a different way. But there's so much dialogue that gets caught up in ourselves around how it is we want to, how, the outcome that we're trying to kind of manipulate into place. And so, yeah, I, I believe so much in that's, that's why, I think you and I both, we started this podcast. And it's really about like helping all of us kind of tune into the truth of ourselves, so then we can be so much more present for everybody else. And it's like, that's of service to the world, right?
absolutely.
I tend to always make things like so much bigger than they need to be. I'm like, it's everything. But
But I think that, with age comes wisdom. And you just, at least for me, I don't want HR professionals to struggle in the profession for as long as I did, because it's just not necessary.
yeah, I
Had I
know,
been
right?
armed with the information I have today, no regrets, because what has happened in my life has led me to this exact moment. And I'm very happy about it. I just don't think, I just don't want people to struggle if they don't have to. I also believe, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. I believe that everything happens for us. And I guess there's just so much more capacity for us to, and I'm going exactly where you went, to impact the world as HR professionals, to have that positive ripple effect to the people on our teams, to the people in our organization. When our employees go home, it ripples out to their families, so on and so forth. And I live in Colorado. I'm down in Miami. Miami is this incredible melting pot of so many different cultures. I swear English is the second language on the beach I'm on. It's crazy. I love it. I love it. And I think about a conversation, I struck up with a lady on the beach yesterday, and just to have that moment and to really feel connected, to really feel understood. And what, I don't know, just like, I'm down here by myself. I had 2 chairs reserved. I passed a chair over to her family of 5 because I just thought, I don't need 2 chairs, right? Like, here you go. And just that ripple effect that we can have both at work, but also in our personal lives, of just showing up, having a conversation, but really, really listening, being in that moment with that person. Pretty cool.
Pretty cool. That sidebar, but just so proud of you for, just being, so brave and having that gumption to be where you are and doing what you are right now. It's so exciting.
It's so fun.
So we have every week, y'all, we do a poll. So this week,
Yes.
our poll was around where it is that we struggle with listening. So the question we asked this week was, what aspect of deep listening do you find most challenging to implement in your HR role? 1, remaining fully engaged. 2, overcoming personal biases and judgments. 3, suppressing the urge to offer immediate solutions. And 4, personal emotional regulation. So, Kathy, what came up for you and what did you notice when you looked at the results of the poll?
Well, when I looked at the results, I was not surprised. I looked early on. I haven't looked recently. I just remember suppressing the urge to offer immediate solutions. That is my life's work. So for me personally, that was the one that resonated most and first. And then as I was doing some prep this morning for our podcast, I went through all 4 of those again, and I couldn't decide. I really couldn't decide because when I actually take the time to sit and really think about it, there's so much beneath, so much that informs my suppression, needing to suppress that urge to offer solutions. For me, it's my narrative of you're not smart enough, you're not smart. I've had this narrative. I was diagnosed with a learning disability. I had a speech impediment as a kid. So now, through my adult lens of just looking back on all of that, I say, okay, cool. That was just me being a kid, right? But I don't have to continue every day of my life trying to fix everybody else, trying to offer immediate solutions. So that would be the one for me that just really stood out. And I do the thought work. I do thought work every single day. And if you don't know what thought work is, it's something that, Jen and I have learned through coaching school. But to really just understand the why, really understand why in the world am I offering immediate solutions when I am never, and Jen, I'm going deep here, but I'm never truly going to understand another human in this life. Like I can listen until the cows come home, but unless I'm like in that person's shoes, I'm never going to truly understand them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And 100% makes sense. And, what's so funny is like by and far the response that got the most responses, both on Facebook and LinkedIn, was that suppressing the urge to fix.
I believe that.
Yeah. And that is like, that makes so much sense, especially when really, like you're saying, actually, if you think about it, if you started asking why, if you started kind of peeling the onion on that, why do I do that? The other responses that's where you find the other responses, right? Like,
yes,
it really does come down to, like you were saying, if, we're in an uncomfortable situation that we just want to be over, right? Then there's going to be this tendency, and we're many times very much not conscious of it. There's going to be this tendency to want to make it go away. So that's the fixing, that's the trying to change and, all of that. And that's what we do, right? So if we can't learn how to just be okay with feeling the discomfort of what, we're actually participating in, I think then we kind of then are seeing it as that fix and control piece, right? But for me, that was where, like I said, with like that situation with the chef, it was really like my inability to want to like be okay with the emotions that were coming up for me, the shame I was feeling because I also was struggling with alcohol, the discomfort I was feeling because he had a tendency to express a lot of times very valid concerns and frustrations, but in a really aggressive way, right? Like in a really, uncomfortable way. And yet I couldn't allow it. It was very uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
you have to know where the boundaries are, right? Like I'm not saying that it's okay to let anybody at any time abuse us. So it's like there are definitely boundaries to know, but I think for myself and recognizing what it was that caused me to want to immediately fix the situation or make it go away, it was so much more for myself around the fear of feeling what was coming up and
Yep.
why it was coming up. And so, what you said was so, so perfect. And I so, kind of just second it again, but it's like exactly the same.
Well, you just added so much value there. You're making me think about terminations. And when we're sitting in a termination and we're thinking, I have to get out of here, I don't want to be here, right? And we're trying to move it along quickly. Or conversely, sometimes we keep the person there because we're trying to make them feel better. Do you want to talk about, there are so many different ways we show up in terminations. And the way to truly show up in a termination is to be ever present with what is going on with that person. And chances are they're really not able to listen because they are chances are not expecting it. Or if they are expecting it, they're in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn.
Yeah.
They're in their amygdala. They're not going to be able to think that with their prefrontal cortex. So yes, terminations are hard for us, and it's okay to acknowledge that emotion. But in order to be fully present and really listening during that conversation, it takes all senses.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, you made me go there. Something you said inspired me to go there, I should say. And there's just so many things that we could be covering.
Yeah, but that's exactly it though. That is exactly it. The more that I have become aware and become more just truly present with what is, I cannot be I can allow myself to detach from it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I can allow myself to release from it. We were talking about that in the pre-show too, right? Like the releasing that can be done to some of the things that we didn't even realize we were holding on to in quite the way that we were. So yeah, I think it's a process, and it's certainly not anything that it happens overnight. It's something that has to be practiced upon in the way, I was saying with Eckhart Tolle, it's about just continuing that practice of showing up and being present and then doing it again and then doing it again. And then realizing, oh my gosh, now I can see so much more clearly, and I can really be there for that individual, for this, situation in a way that's not so ego driven. So this is so darn good.
Amen on a Monday.
Amen on Monday. So, okay, well, let's shift it. Let's start giving our listeners some tools and some tips. So
let's do it.
How can HR professionals ensure that they can help create and I love this, an inclusive listening environment where all voices are heard and respected? So what are some of your thoughts around where can HR professionals start when it comes to helping create more inclusive listening environments?
Ooh, this just popped in my head. I would say a question you can ask yourself is, how would I show up if I didn't know how to create an inclusive listening environment? How would I show up? Meaning, in HR, we tend to think we have all the answers. We are all knowing, but kind of going back to being a truly deep listener. We've got to be able to take off our own lens in an attempt to look at it through other people's lenses. So show up in a way where you're like, I don't know, and be okay with I don't know. And then at the end of I don't know unless I do X, Y, and Z. In other words, my recommendation would be to do a lot more asking than telling. It's really about showing up in a way where knowing what your end goal is, that you want to create this inclusive listening and learning environment where all voices are heard and respected, knowing that you want that. what is that going to require? It's going to require really understanding what inclusivity feels like, sounds like, all of those things to your work environment. Because every work environment is so different. So that's where I struggle a little bit with like these pre-packaged DEI presentations or models, because every organization is different, period. So if you're bringing a third party in to do some customized training to help with inclusivity, to help with anything, just make sure that that third party offers customizable solutions, because one size fits all, it's going to be a waste of your organization's money. It's going to be a waste of everyone's time. And let's be honest, HR kind of ends up with egg on their face, because HR didn't take the time to not only really listen and understand what the organization wants, but to also approach it in a way that we're starting with asking versus telling.
Nice. I love that so much. I mean, it's like, so it's so true. I mean, in terms of being able to like really just start asking those questions and really listening in a way that is different, like I think the off the shelf and the box and, that's this and that's that was, that was the way. I mean, that's kind of the corporate way, right? And so shifting that model or, our mindsets around that is it takes some work, and there may be some resistance. And so, I really encourage, anyone out there that struggles with that in our work environments to not give up, seek support and guidance, and know that you're not alone when it comes to wanting to kind of open that up. And gosh, you just cracked open so much for me just now on that one.
Wait, how so? What happened?
Well, no, when you started talking about kind of the DEI and inclusive, listening environments, I was like, oh my gosh, that's a whole nother episode.
That's a whole other episode, right? Such a hot HR topic, and has been and will continue to be for a long time. I hope.
Yeah. But it's so funny, because for my response to that question around like what I think that we can do to help create more inclusive listening environments, I end up going inward.
Because, amen. Yeah, because it's both.
I tend to do, but my response on it really is about like the more that I have been able to own my story and own my truth in a grounded way, and really be able to kind of show up as that person who can own myself and be able to be completely open to anything and everything that could be. It has helped others gain the permission to be able to feel as though they can do the same. And so like you and I have talked about this several times, but like my journey coming back into HR after, my experience of coaching and going through, pretty significant personal event in my life.
Yes.
But being able to do that and now having this frame of mind that I am so much more honest about like who I am, and not holding a lot of narratives around who I think it should be, or who I think I'm trying to please, or who, all of that, and just really being so authentic is like everything, like it means so much to me, and has been such a gift in my life, because it's helped me realize that this is exactly why this has all happened to me the way that it has. And really all of it has actually come down to listening, right? Which is so fascinating to me.
It's fascinating.
It's all come down to listening, and not the listening that we all, I mean, it's because your response is exactly true, right? We need to ask questions. We need to lean in. We need to be open. And then I would say, and it's about listening to our own heart and soul. Like it's about listening to the alignment of who we truly are and how we really are showing up. That's what listening is to me. And when we can do that, and when we can find that alignment within our soul, then we start showing up in a way that's so authentically pure that we can allow in absolutely everything that could possibly, come towards us. It's really like an amazing thing. And so, I think that for every one of us being on this journey of self-growth and self-improvement, all I would say to every single person out there is just keep going. Just keep going. It just keeps getting better and better and better. And it's like, I think so often people think, oh, it's, it might be fluff and it might be this and it might be that. But here you and I are on episode 10, and it just keeps getting better and better and better. And it's because of that willingness to own our stories, our willingness to own the truth, the messiness that goes along with the growth. You're not going to grow. You're not going to evolve unless you're willing to own the ickiness. And that's truly what's helped shift so much in my life. And I think what continues to. So I went so there.
I love that you went there, because it's so true. It's an and. It's an and.
It's an and.
When we show up for ourselves and we do the deep listening within, I used to call them whispers. I guess I still call them whispers, but it's that quieter voice. Mm-hmm. Like for me, it was the voice of, you should probably stop drinking. A quieter voice that I didn't listen to until last year. And now I'm alcohol free. And for me, not for anybody else, for me, I had to really start listening to myself. And now that I'm alcohol free, talk about being able to listen, because I don't have a hangover, or I'm not fuzzy from the night before, right? I'm just able to show up in this whole new ever-present way and pay attention to myself and what I actually need. But also, it's just cool to be able to be there for others in a much more true and sincere way, because I'm not beating myself up over having that double shot margarita every night of COVID. I laugh about it because that's all I can do at this point. Tequila, that was my thing.
Well, yeah, I agree 150,000%. I think, yesterday during our pre-show, we were talking about buffering, and buffering is really the thing that we use, right? It can be alcohol, it can be food, it can be smoking, it can be weed, it can be whatever, right? It's the thing that we use so we don't have to actually experience, things. And it's a way to escape, right? It's a way to say F it. It's a way to let go into something that feels more comfortable. And so what, you did for me yesterday. So I am someone who is really on a path towards releasing buffers, releasing anything that I hold on to that puts me back into a space that I'm not just truly myself. And so I just want to thank you as a friend and as a partner for listening and being there in a way that could be so fully present, because I had a slip. And so for the first time in a long, long time, I had a few drinks, and it was so ironic because the timing of it, there's just a lot that's piled up. And it's like, of course, it makes so much sense given the circumstances. And at the same time, it's such a good opportunity, any slip, right? So think of this buffer, think of your buffers out there, but any slips that we have that get off the direction that within our soul we know we're meant to be going is such a good opportunity to reflect back and really listen to ourselves. And so these last 24 hours since, I confess to you and really talk through what I was going through have been some of the best for me, because I've really been able to listen to what was that, right? Like what happened to cause me to self-sabotage? What the frick would cause me to go and off a path that I know deep within my heart and soul? And it's fear. right? It's just
Mm.
incredible fear of,
Yeah.
experiencing what I may be currently experiencing and wanting to get off that ride as soon as I can and having that ability. So yeah, what a beautiful thing. So I went off on a tangent,
Mm.
but I just really wanted to kind of put that in. It's just an opportunity within this episode of listening to say that what you did for me, and I think what we do, I think, with having this platform is to
Yes.
be able to give others a permission to know that they're not alone and
Nope.
that, they at any time can start making a step or steps in a different direction. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
Well, you're so welcome. And I'm so impressed that you brought this up today, that you're willing to share that vulnerability, that openness, that honesty with the world. And it just goes to show how true you are to your word, that you really believe we need to share. We need to be open. We need to be honest with ourselves. And this community that we're creating through this podcast is really, really important because we're not alone. We have each other. And buffering, I love that word. Buffering is exactly what you just described it. And as opposed to what I love about you, Jen, is that you don't indulge in shame. You indulge in curiosity. And you're like, well, what was that? What was that? And you go deep. And instead of building up more of a concrete wall through shame, you really are breaking that wall down by really getting to the root of what was that? What was that? I'm gonna figure this out. And I think I just commend you for going there with me, for opening up yesterday with me, privately, but certainly in this community as well. It's very inspiring. It's very inspiring. And I mean, obviously, I am alcohol free. So, Jen and I had a very interesting conversation yesterday. And one of the things I still struggle with is my disordered eating, for sure. I am not able to always truly listen and show up for people if I have just mowed down a couple of donuts in the break room, or I'm beating myself up for that greasy cheeseburger and French fries that I know is not good for my heart health. It's not good for my Hashimoto's. I have an autoimmune disease. I have asthma. I mean, I have a lot of health complications, and I'm working on all of them. And I dive into the shame. I just beat myself up. And if I'm beating myself up and I'm not really diving into okay, why are you beating yourself up? What's going on? If I don't actually take that time, and I take the time every morning to sort of make sure I am able to focus on my clients and focus on my day, I get it out of the way through thought work in the morning. And I do my thought work. And if something pops up in the middle of the day, I just do a little bit of thought work. It's like the ethos method that I came up for myself and I now teach to my clients, so that we can be fully present with ourselves. It's a tool to truly listen to ourselves, but then you can actually apply it in the workplace too, and really, really encourage that openness. So now I feel like I went off on a tangent, but thank you for opening that door, because I don't really talk about that very often.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the vulnerability, and I believe, in my journey, and I think in yours as well, that we all have something. Every one of us.
Yeah.
If you are the perfect person, please reach out.
Please, we'd love to meet you.
We want to pick your brain, but no, we all have something, and it's like, what we need to be able to do is, in some capacity, whether it's whispering it, right, which I think is completely okay, or speaking through a loudspeaker, whatever it is that allows us to be able to kind of free what we're holding on to. And so we can, be able to kind of shift our ability to in how we show up. because I think that's one of the greatest gifts and joys that we have as humans, is when we start to be able to show up differently, the relationships you start to build and the community that starts to grow from that place, it's different. It's just different. And it's like, it's hard to describe. It's hard to like really communicate. Like, you know, I had a conversation with someone not too long ago where they felt as though I was trying to say that, you know, there's a betterness about like, you know, how, you know, you can, all of it, like it's, you know, better or worse. And really it's not so much that. It's like the growth that, you know, we experience. Just for me personally, it provides a richness that I just didn't have before. And everyone gets to choose that level of deepness that they're interested in going in. But for me, in terms of like how that impacts the relationships that I have an opportunity to build and grow, it's everything. So, and that's at work too. Like what you said is so spot on and exactly right. Like it's how, you know, then it translates into the work environment. And as an HR person, that's where the opportunity is mind blowing, you know, in terms of like how we can shift so much just by our presence, just by that shift and awareness in our presence. So, oh my gosh, you know, literally, I think you and I probably just had 2 or 3 different episodes spin off from this one.
I totally agree. I wish I'd been taking, I'm going to have to watch this again and start noting all the other episodes that we need to cover.
Oh my goodness.
Came off of this.
But before we wrap up, Katherine, was there anything about listening or, you know, just to share with our audience that you want to make sure that they take away with them?
I do. There's something that's been helpful for me, and because I am different than anybody, any other listener, we're all different. I just want to share something that I experimented with that worked for me. We've all been taught to paraphrase, and what I have found with paraphrasing for me is that I don't always get it right because I see it through my lens, especially if somebody's in my office and they're kind of in a monologue. They're going on for a while because my brain will naturally just start to process it through my own lens. So what I do as I'm continuing to develop my deep listening skills is to not paraphrase. I literally tried to repeat back exactly what I heard. And when I do that, that's just a technique that I use. And when I do that, I repeat back because I'm reinforcing that I've understood that narrative exactly how that person wanted to communicate it. And at the very end of it, I say something along the lines of, did I get that right? And it allows the person to say yes or no. 9 times out of 10, more like 99 times out of 100, when I repeat back exactly, they say yes. Sometimes it's no. Something has changed in their brain, or maybe I didn't nail repeating back exactly what they just said. So whether you're experimenting with paraphrasing, whether you're experimenting with verbatim repeating back, just adding that phrase of, did I get it right? Did I get it right? Am I understanding, you know, am I picking up what you're putting down? Whatever words feel natural for you, just start experimenting with different things. Would be my only little nugget I wanted to share today. Jen, what about you?
Well, I love that because, and I would put an and with that even, is like being able to do so with like vulnerability and like humility and say, hey, you know, I'm really trying to understand. Here's what I think I heard you say. And that I have found to be so disarming and such a beautiful way for them to truly feel heard and seen. So I love what you said so much. And I would just challenge everyone out there to like check in with yourself. Like if you're struggling with doing that, it's probably because it's hard to kind of release that wall within yourself, and it's okay. You know, it's probably going to take some time, especially if it's not a skill that you're practiced in. But like that, I think makes such a huge difference in that scenario, because, you know, for them to like really see that you've been listening and that you hear, and that, you are completely, human, that if you didn't understand correctly, because what you really want to do most importantly is truly to understand. So yeah, I thank you for that. That was so good. And I love that we're like, and
yes, great book. I love that. Yes, and love that book.
Yes, and so, okay, well, as we wrap up, Katherine, I want to remind, our listeners and our viewers out there, if you have not already downloaded, rated, reviewed the Thrive and Shine HR podcast, please do so. This is such a dream come true for me and Katherine, I think you too. And we are just having such a blast, and we want to be able to continue that blast. And we want to be able to eventually, grow and be able to do even more, with it in the future. So help us out. And Katherine, anything you want to plug, or anything exciting that you got going on right now that you want to share with our listeners?
Well, other than finally meeting my coach, Brooke Castillo, in person tomorrow, that's going to be amazing. If you're into life coaching at all, Google Brooke Castillo if you don't know who she is. I'm meeting her tomorrow. This is like a big deal. But what's more important, the HR Champions Challenge starts in 2 hours from now. So I'm bringing together women who want to earn their PDCs, so your recertification credits for Sherman HRCI. I have an app with 26 workshops that I have led in the last 6 months. They are ready to go. They're available on replay. But the challenge that we're doing in the month of April is to move your body while listening to them. So there's just a brand new, Jen, I don't know if you saw it, Jay Shetty's podcast, not in the Calm app, but it's actual podcast. It's about being sedentary. And it came out this morning. I didn't have a chance to listen to it, but I was like, how ironic is that? HR professionals, we are hella sedentary on the average. And if you know you need to move your body more, or you got to get those PDCs in because your recertification cycle is coming up, or you want to actually do some different type of HR skill development. This is not something you're going to find in SHRM. This is not something you're going to find in HRCI. It's going to be more related to what we talked about today. So if that's the type of learning that you'd like to do, I just welcome you into the challenge. I was so inspired. We just announced this last week, and I couldn't believe the response that we got in just like a 24-hour period. So Jen, I kind of hinted at this, but I would love to tag team with you on future challenges, future opportunities for all of the HR professionals out there, because there's obviously a need, and I would love nothing more than to team with you and get some future challenges, whatever they look like, off the ground. I think it would be fantastic to tag team with you. Just saying.
Damn, girl. Yeah, no, not only am I so excited to be joining your challenge starting today, I think I do have a meeting at the time. I'm so bummed about that, but I'm going to have to watch the replay. But
all good.
I'm so excited about joining your challenge, and I'm so excited about what's in store for the future, because
me too.
I'm really starting to, now that this podcast is, kind of growing in the way that we knew that it could, it's time for me to start thinking about what's next. So right now I don't have anything on my agenda in terms of programs or anything, because it's in the future. So first it's taking your program, and then us putting our heads together and putting together something amazing for the future.
I can't wait. I love it. I love it.
All right. Well, everybody, we are wrapping up today, but I want to thank you. We want to thank you so much for joining us today. And don't forget, every day is a new day to thrive and shine in the field of HR. Have a great day, everybody.